Hey, Star Wars fans out there? You got a few? One of the greatest movies of all time, and there's like 5 people that raise their hand. Awesome. Well, that was Star Wars. For those of you who haven't seen it, you should check it out sometime. I love movies. I don't know about you. I just love movies. I love movies, whether it's on Netflix or going to see a movie. I just love movies. So I'm excited about this series, mostly because it's just got a great theme to it, Summer Blockbusters. And we're going to look at a few movies over the next few weeks, and we're going to use them to help kind of pull out biblical truths. And I just love movies. I love going to movies. I love the smell of popcorn when you kind of walk in the movie theater and there's the station. In fact, my dream, if my wife will allow, is in my basement to basically have like a little movie theater. I want the popcorn machine with the rolling cart. I want a little, candy area. I just want to have an awesome big screen movie experience in my basement. And I say, we'll see if it happens. But that is certainly the dream. For me, anyway. I was actually hesitant to admit this, but if you have seen the popcorn area, you kind of saw those marquee poster signs. Those are mine for the movie theater basement I don't have. I saw those on sale, and I'm like, those would be awesome. I have to get them. In fact, a little while ago, I already had those, convinced my wife to keep them. I wanted an old school kind of movie projector. I'm like, hon, I saw this on Kijiji. This would be so awesome. It'd be great in our movie theater. And she's like, what movie theater? And I'm like, That's fair. That's a good point. I just love movies, and I hope you do too. Some of you just think it's a waste of time, and that's fine. But I just love movies, and I think we're going to have a little bit of fun with this series and using movies to help illustrate some biblical points. For me, one of the things I want to talk about today is a topic that I kind of struggle with, and you might struggle with as well. And it's an area of prayer. And there's so many different areas to prayer, and we're not going to talk about them all today. I want to talk about one area specifically. And before you label me as the pastor who doesn't pray, I do pray. But there's one area in particular I just kind of struggle with. I just kind of struggle with. And maybe you struggle with it too. Because sometimes prayer can be more superstitious than supernatural. You ever felt that about your prayer life? It's just maybe more superstitious than supernatural. It's kind of what you do. It's just kind of routine. You just kind of do it out of habit. You pray before you eat a meal, or you pray before you go to bed, or you get up in the morning, or you pray before you go on a trip. And instead of calling on the God of the universe and asking the God of the universe to step in, and as only He can step in supernatural ways, we just kind of ask for things that are going to work out anyway, don't we? We kind of ask for things that probably just happen anyway. We have a meal and we pray that God would bless the food to our bodies. And unless we're eating a dinner of, chips and pop, chances are it's going to kind of work out anyway. You'll get some nutritional value from it either way, right? Or you're going on a trip and you say, God, please keep us safe. And of course, that's not a bad thing, but chances are the trip is going to be fairly safe anyway. Or you pray for God to, give you a good night's sleep. And unless you've got a, 2-week-old at home, chances are it's going to kind of work out anyway, right? We often just kind of pray for things that even if God never showed up, even if God didn't answer the prayer, we may not even notice. It just kind of happened. It's kind of work out anyway. And we often pray in that kind of way. We kind of just pray out of, I'll say, superstition, as opposed to praying to a supernatural God. We often stick to the safe and the small, don't we? We stick to those things that are just going to work out, whether we pray or not, whether God steps in or not. We just kind of stick to the things that are safe. We don't want to pray big. We don't want to pray in a God-sized way. My hope and my prayer is that we would have prayers that would match the size of our God. And I'll say sometimes my prayers, in fact, oftentimes my prayers, do not match the size of the God that I believe in. They're much smaller. They're more superstitious. They're safe than calling on a supernatural God. So the first question I want to ask this morning is, what if we're selling God short? What if we're selling God short? What if God can do so much more than we kind of ask Him and invite Him into? I know from my life, I believe in a God who can do so much more than I invite Him in to be a part of. I ask Him for things that are going to work out anyway, as opposed to a God who moves mountains, who created the heavens and the earth, a God who raised Himself from the dead. So often I ask for the things that are so much smaller than he can do. Things that are going to work out anyway. And I think very often I sell God short. So do you struggle with that as well? Sometimes are you selling God short? Are you looking to God and going, I just don't trust you with the big stuff? And now, don't get me wrong, I'm going to say this a few times this morning, but don't get me wrong. I am not suggesting that if things are going wrong in your life or if things are happening in your life, it's simply because you're not praying hard enough or because you don't have a faith. I don't believe that. But what I want to ask you today is, what if you're selling God short? What if you can invite him into something bigger in your life, more than just the superstitious, but actually invite him into the supernatural? You may have actually, even as I'm talking now, you might have been kind of felt there's a certain topic, there's a certain issue in your life. Maybe it's a health issue, maybe it's a family issue, maybe it's a financial issue, but there's just something that God's kind of been nudging you with. And you've just kind of felt, yeah, God, yeah, I know you're kind of telling me to pray bigger, to just, call you into this area of my life, but I don't know about it. But maybe our response is kind of like Luke, and we just go, you want the impossible. You want the impossible, God. I mean, I believe in a big God. I know you can do some things, but you just kind of want the impossible. Let me ask you this question. How would you pray if you knew the answer was yes? Would that change your prayer life? I bet you it would change mine. I mean, if I knew that no matter what I prayed for, God would say yes, that would be pretty incredible. And that would certainly change the way I pray. I probably wouldn't be praying as much for, blessing the food to my body or getting a good night's sleep. I would be praying bigger. I would be praying much bigger for my family, for my city, for this church, for my friends. I would pray so much bigger if I knew the answer was yes. I mean, after I got winning the lottery and all that out of the way. But I would pray so much bigger. And I bet your prayer would change too. If you knew that the answer was yes, and I'm not saying it will be, but if you knew the answer was yes, it would probably change the way you think about prayer. And that's what I hope to do today. I hope to change just a little bit the way you think about prayer. And we would move beyond the superstitious to the supernatural. What if God was simply waiting for you to ask? Again, I'm not saying if you just pray it, it's going to happen. But what if there was an area of your life that God was saying, I want to step in. I want to do something incredible. I want to step in as only I can do. I want to work in a supernatural way, but he's just waiting for you to ask. He's just waiting to be invited in. How tragic would it be if we got to heaven and we're having a coffee with God and God goes, that thing that consumed you so much, that thing that, you wrestled with for years? Here's what I was going to do with that if you just invited me in. How tragic would it be to have that conversation with God? And you just go, are you kidding me? I can't believe you were going to do that. And he goes, yeah, I was just waiting for you to take the first step. I wanted for you to move towards me. I wanted you to show that you had a little bit of faith in me in this area. How crazy would that be? And how devastating would it be for that to happen? I want to look at a story today found in the book of Acts, chapter 12. It's an event that happened, was recorded in the book of Acts. For those of you who are not into church, or this is maybe your first time here, there's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in the New Testament, often referred to as the Gospels. These record the life of Jesus. And then there's Acts, and that's what we're going to kind of pick up today. And after the life of Jesus, we have the book of Acts, where basically is sometimes referred to the Acts of the Apostles, where it's the start of the early church. And they have some great things happen. They have some difficulties happen. But it is the start of the church. And we're going to pick up in chapter 12, where they're just kind of starting to spread the gospel. And they're having a lot of great people come to faith. But it's a struggle, too, because as great as that is, there's a lot of people who do not like it. Particularly some of the Jewish people do not like it. They don't like it because, one, they find it a bit of heresy to suggest that Jesus is God. But they also don't like that they're losing the power and control over some of the people that they have. So we're going to pick up in chapter 12 and look at this absolutely incredible event. It was about this time that King Herod arrested some who belonged to the church, intending to persecute them. He had James, the brother of John, put to death with the sword. Again, not going so well. When he saw that this met with approval among the Jews, he proceeded to seize Peter also. This happened during the festival of unleavened bread, the Passover. After arresting him, he put him in prison, handing him over to be guarded by 4 squads of 4 soldiers each. Herod intended to bring him out for public trial after the Passover. So Peter was kept in prison, but the church was earnestly praying to God for him. The church was doing what the church should do. The church was doing what the church could do. They knew they had no power when it came to Herod. They knew this situation was way out of the control, but they knew a God who was bigger than all of it. They knew a God who was bigger than their circumstances and their situation. They knew a God who raised himself from the dead. So they were praying to that God. They said that we've got a God bigger than all of this. So they get together and they're praying and they're praying and they're praying for their friend. They're praying and they're praying and they're praying for him. They're earnestly praying day after day. The night before Herod was to bring him to trial, Peter was sleeping between 2 soldiers, bound with 2 chains, and sentries stood guard at the entrance. Suddenly, an angel of the Lord appeared, and a light shone in the cell. He struck Peter on the side and woke him up. "Quick, get up," he said, and the chains fell off Peter's wrists. I love this thing. I mean, we got an angel who's just kind of in a rush to another miracle. I guess it's a busy day. And instead of I often think, there's lots of reasons I believe this story is true, but it's details like that that make me think you wouldn't make that up. If I was writing this story, I would think, well, the angel whispered in his ear, get up, or he put his hand on Peter. But we got an angel who's just kind of in a rush, and it kind of hits them and goes, "Let's go. We got places to be. Let's go." And he goes off. It says, then the angel said to him, "Put on your clothes and sandals." And Peter did so. "Wrap your cloak around you and follow me," the angel told him. Peter followed him out of the prison, but he had no idea that what the angel was doing was really happening. He thought he was seeing a vision. And that's kind of, justified. I don't know how you are when you wake up. I'm a little groggy, and I get woken up by this angel who just kind of kicks me. And then I've got an angel in front of me, and that's unusual. And then I'm walking out of prison. You can understand that he's kind of wrestling with this in his head as it's all happening. He's just not even sure that this is all happening. Basically, he thinks he's still dreaming and kind of wishing this would happen. They passed the first and the second guards and came to an iron gate leading to the city. It opened for them by itself, and they went through it. When they had walked the length of one street, suddenly the angel left him. No parting words, he's on to his next thing. Then Peter came to himself and said, "Now I know without a doubt that the Lord has sent his angel and rescued me from Herod's clutches and from everything the Jewish people were hoping would happen." When this had dawned on him, he went to the house of Mary, the mother of John, also called Mark, where people had been gathered and were praying. So he goes through this incredible miracle experience. He just goes through this thing that you just never expected to happen. And he says, "You know what? I remember these people praying for me. My people, my church people, they are praying for me. I have to go tell them what's happened. The God that we believe in did something incredible, something I just didn't think he would. This is absolutely amazing. I got to go tell my people." Peter knocked at the outer entrance, and a servant named Rhoda came and answered the door. When she recognized Peter's voice, she was so overjoyed, she ran back without opening it and exclaimed, "Peter is at the door." This girl is excited. She forgets to even open the door. He goes through all this. She doesn't get "Hello, how you doing?" a hug, nothing. She just runs away from the door, completely forgetting to open it, and goes and tells the people what had happened. We don't know her faith. We don't know if she believes in Jesus. We don't know what's going on. All she knows is there's a group in this very house praying and praying and praying that God would step in, praying and praying and praying that God would do something amazing, that God would do something miraculous, that God would do something only he can do. And she's so excited to let them know that God has actually done something, she forgets to even open the door. She is so excited. She is so excited to tell these people. So what these incredible people, the people who've been praying for days for this guy, what do they say when they finally hear that God has stepped in an incredible way? You are out of your mind, they told her. When she kept insisting that it was so, they said, it must be his angel. They're praying and praying and praying, but they didn't think God would actually do something. They're praying and praying and praying and praying. And when God showed up, they thought, this girl has lost it. There's no way that actually happened. I love that it says, it must be his angel. I think the absolute best case scenario is that he's dead and his angel has come to let us know. That's the best case scenario in their minds after they've been praying so earnestly for Peter. But Peter kept on knocking, and when they opened the door and saw him, they were astonished. They were astonished. Peter motioned with his hand for them to be quiet and described how the Lord had brought him out of prison. They were astonished. They've been praying that God would do something. And when he showed up, they could not believe it. But here's the thing. We serve a God that does the astonishing. Sometimes I think we forget that. We invite him into the small and into the safe. And we forget there's a God who can do the astonishing. A God who can just do so incredibly much. And I think sometimes God's looking at us and going, is that all you're going to ask? Is that all you're going to invite me into? One of the things I love about that clip, I've never been a huge Star Wars person, if I can admit, but apparently the 10 of you who liked it, the rest of you don't care. But I was never a huge Star Wars person, but I always loved Yoda. I loved it, one, because he's wise, but he also had a little bit of attitude, right? And in that clip, I loved how he was just kind of rolling his eyes and was like, kid, you have no idea what I can do. And I think God sometimes is like that with us. We come to him and we're saying, can you do this? Can you do this? And he's going, you have no idea what could happen if you invite me in. You have no idea how your life, your neighbor's life, your city could be changed if you let me in. Because often we just ask big when we have no other options. When our marriage is on the brink of divorce, when our family situation is crumbling and the kids ran off, when we're on the verge of bankruptcy, when our health is just absolutely deteriorated. It's often only then when we come to God saying, oh, can you do something incredible? And there's nothing wrong with coming to him then. But he can come in and other times. He can come in and do so much more than just bail us out at the last moment. And as I said, God may not say yes. I'm not suggesting that God is going to say yes just because you pray. But what if he would? What if he would? What if he'd step in just after you take a step of faith? See, we believe in a big God. I believe in a big God. I believe in a God who created the heavens and the earth, who raised people from the dead, who broke someone out of jail, who can do so incredibly much. I know it up here, but often when I pray, often when things are going on in my life, I don't pray that size of prayer. I pray for the small, for the safe, the things that are going to work out anyway. Do you do that as well? What if our prayers match the size of our God? What if our prayers match just how big we believed God to be? So why do you think he won't show up? Why do you think he won't show up in your life, in your situation? When I was thinking through this question, for me, I was thinking, you know what? I think the reason I often think God won't show up is because there's other things going on. There's other things going on in this world. There's bigger things. There's bigger issues than what's going on in my own life. But God still loves me. God still cares for me. God loves me as if I was the only one on this planet, although he cares and loves everyone on this planet the same. He cares for me just like I was the only one. And yet, although I know it up here, when it comes to my prayer, sometimes I just struggle with that idea. to struggle with, there is bigger issues in this world. There's bigger issues going on that God can focus his time and energy on. Why would he care about what's going on in my life? But what is it for you? Why do you think God just won't show up? Do you think he can't? Do you think he's busy with other things going on in the world? What is it in your life? Why do you think God won't show up in your life? Now, as I said, I don't know why God says no sometimes. I don't know. Sometimes I think he just has something better waiting for us. Sometimes I think he literally just has something better waiting for us. We pray to God for a business opportunity. We pray for God for a relationship. We pray to God and we go, God, if you just grant me this thing, I will never ask for anything again. And God's going, oh, you have no idea. You have no idea what road that's going to take you down, and you have no idea what I have waiting for you. You just have no idea. I think God's like that sometimes, and he has something better waiting for us. When I was a kid, a frequent disagreement between me and my father and I was where I should park my bike. I thought the lawn was a great place to park my bike, and he did not. He thought it should be put away in the backyard. And I remember coming home from school one time, and I was just home for lunch and going to be back out in a few minutes. And I thought, well, I'll just park on the lawn. And I saw my dad's car as I pulled around the corner that he was there to this day, and I thought, okay, we're going to have this fight. And instead of doing the mature thing of just putting it in the backyard because, he's going to ask me and ultimately he's going to win anyway, instead of doing that, I decided, well, I'm going to park it on the front lawn and have the debate with him. So I did that. I parked on the front lawn. I went in the house and the debate ensued. And he said, park your bike in the backyard. And again, I'm a kid, and the idea of going up and getting the latch and swinging open the big door, putting in the backyard and closing it and all that just seemed too much. It seemed too much of a pain. And, I just couldn't be bothered to say, I'm only home for a few minutes to grab some lunch. Just could not be bothered. Well, ultimately, we had this battle out, and ultimately he won, as he always did on this battle. And I said, fine. And I opened the door and I put the bike in the back. But as I open the door, I see a brand new bike with a big bow on it. I know, he's awesome. I think God's like that sometimes. I think God sometimes just has something better waiting for us. And we fight with him and we argue with him and say, no, I want this. And God's going, you have no idea. Just be quiet and do what you're told because I have something better waiting for you. I think that's sometimes the case. But there's other times, I have no idea why he says no. There's other times I just have no idea why he says no. Some of you know my story, but many of you don't. When I was 15 years old, my mother passed away of cancer. She was diagnosed when I was about 10. My sister would have been about 7. And she was diagnosed with cancer, and at 15, when I was 15, she passed away. And being young, my parents, of course, didn't tell us a whole lot of details. And as she was getting worse, I knew it probably wasn't going to be so good. And I remember my dad taking my sister and I out on our family boat for a few hours. And at one point, he kind of stops things and gets us together and says, you know what? We have to kind of prepare ourselves that Mom might not make it. And if I didn't know before, I certainly knew then, because I knew that if there's any chance of her making it, we weren't going to have that conversation, that it wasn't going to be good, and it was only a matter of time. And many of you have gone through situations just like that. And like myself, you have prayed, and you have prayed, and you have prayed. You've prayed for God to step in. You've prayed for God to do something miraculous, and he said no, or maybe not right now. And you have felt that hurt. I get it. I get it. I know what that's like. I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, and my mom still passed. So the question I asked you, and the question I asked myself in that moment was this: what's your options? What's my options? I kind of look at it, maybe I'm a pragmatist, but I just kind of looked at it and said, well, what are my options? Well, option number one was I could just say, forget you, God. I've been hurt. I don't believe you're going to do anything. I don't believe if I pray, you're going to answer my prayer. You didn't answer this one. And I can just write off God and say, enough, forget it, and never ask for anything again. And that's a real possibility, trust me. But the other possibility, the other option, is that maybe, I'm not saying he will, but maybe next time God would say yes. And I'd hate to get to heaven and God to have that conversation with me and go, you know what? I know you don't understand why this didn't happen. I know you don't understand why I didn't step in here, but there's other things that I had prepared for you. There's other things I want to do in your life if you just asked. I don't want to get to heaven and have that conversation with God. It's something I struggle with all the time for my prayer life to match the size of the God I believe in, but I hope and I pray that would be the case for so many of us, for all of us, that we'd pray and pray and pray big God-sized prayers, because I don't know when he's going to say yes and when he's going to say no, but I do not want to miss out on the opportunity that he might say yes. As I look at my life since then, I think there's so many things that God has stepped in and done in amazing ways. The ones that come to the forefront are, of course, my incredible wife and my now 2 little girls that have just been absolute incredible answers to prayer. And I wonder where my life would have been if I had just kind of written God off and said, forget it. But I wanted to keep on praying to God because I didn't know if he would say yes next time, and I didn't want to miss out. So my hope, my prayer is that you guys and myself would pray big God-sized goals. Because what if we fail because we don't believe? As Yoda so wisely put it, what if we fail? What if it doesn't happen because we just don't believe God's going to step in? What if he will? So my hope and my prayer is that we would pray with boldness, that we would pray big God-sized goals, that we would pray the prayers that would match the size of the God we believe in. It's easier said than done. I get it. But I pray for you. Help me to pray for you. Help me pray for this city. Pray along with me that God would do what only he can do. We talk so often as a staff as we want to, work our tails off to make this place amazing, but we are incredibly aware that we can do that much. The true transformation in people's lives, the true transformation in this church, in this city, comes from God stepping in. And we want to keep going to him and going, God, please, please, please work. So what's going on in your life? What's that big, I don't know if he's going to do it prayer issue? My encouragement, my hope is just say, maybe he's just waiting for me to take the first step of faith.